Bianca did not shout. She did not beg. She did not even blink. She stood in the middle of the Trillionaire's sitting room in Ikoyi, between the gold-framed family portraits and the long cream sofa everyone feared to sit on, and she faced the one woman nobody ever spoke to directly, Lady Beatrice Hawthorne, Derek Hawthorne's mother, the woman the whole house called Madam, like the word could save them. Lady Beatrice's walking stick tapped the marble floor once. Every maid stood still. Every guard held his breath. Even Mona Lisa, Derek's wife, looked like her heart had fallen into her stomach, because Bianca, the new cook, had just done what no one had ever done in that house. She pointed at Lady Beatrice and said, calmly, "Madam, you will not speak to her like that again." The air turned sharp, like a blade. Lady Beatrice's eyes narrowed, slow, dangerous. Mona Lisa whispered, "Bianca, please." But Bianca did not move. Lady Beatrice took one step forward, her voice soft and poisonous. "Who hired you?" Bianca answered, "Your son did." Lady Beatrice smiled. It was not a friendly smile. And then she lifted her walking stick high enough to strike Bianca's face, when a deep voice cut through the room like thunder without any sky. "Mother." Derek had walked in, and his eyes were fixed on Bianca's hand, because she was holding something, a small black envelope with Lady Beatrice's name on it. Nobody had seen it before, but Bianca held it like she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. Derek's face changed, Mona Lisa's lips parted in fear, and Lady Beatrice's hand started to shake, because Bianca said the next words slowly, clearly, and loud enough for the whole house to hear. "This is why you scare everyone, because you think nobody knows what you did." Lady Beatrice's eyes widened, and the sitting room went dead silent. 2 weeks earlier, nobody in that house knew Bianca. She arrived on a bright Monday morning in a simple white shirt and black skirt, holding a small bag like she had brought her whole life inside it. At the gate, the security men stopped her. "Who are you?" one asked. Bianca smiled politely. "I'm the new cook." The guard laughed like it was a joke. "New cook? Here?" This was the Hawthorne mansion. People in Lagos whispered about it like it was a palace. Derek Hawthorne was not just rich. He was the kind of rich that made other billionaires look like they were still struggling. People called him a trillionaire because nobody could count everything he owned. He had banks, he had oil deals, he had buildings that touched the sky. And in that mansion, every worker lived under one rule: do not upset Lady Beatrice. Because Lady Beatrice did not shout like normal people. She did not slap like some rich women. She would look at you once, and you could lose your job by evening. Workers came and went like shadows. Nobody asked questions. Everybody acted like they had no eyes. Bianca was led inside by the head housekeeper, an older woman called Mrs. Janet, whose face always looked tired. Mrs. Janet spoke quietly as they walked through the long hallway. "Listen carefully," she said. "Do your work. Keep your head down. Do not talk too much. And never ever answer Madam back." Bianca nodded. "Madam is Derek's mother." Mrs. Janet glanced around before answering. "Yes, and she is the real owner of this house, even though Derek pays for everything. It finds." Bianca stopped walking. "What about his wife?" Mrs. Janet's mouth tightened. "Mona Lisa? She is careful. She is kind, but she is afraid." Bianca frowned. "Afraid of her husband?" Mrs. Janet shook her head quickly. "Afraid of his mother." That was Bianca's first warning. Her second warning came when she finally saw Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa Hawthorne was young and beautiful in a quiet way. Not loud, not proud. She wore a soft gown, the color of milk tea, and simple earrings that looked like she chose peace over attention. When Bianca entered the kitchen, Mona Lisa came in too, holding a tray herself, like she did not trust anyone else with it. "Good morning," Mona Lisa said gently. Bianca bowed her head. "Good morning, Ma." Mona Lisa smiled, but the smile was thin, like it had been pushed out by fear. "You're the new cook," Mona Lisa said. "Bianca." Bianca nodded. "Yes, Ma." Mona Lisa glanced behind her before whispering, "Please, be careful in this house," Bianca asked quietly. "Because of Madam?" Mona Lisa's eyes flickered. "Yes." Then she forced another small smile and walked out as if she never spoke. Bianca watched her go. And for the first time since she arrived, Bianca's face stopped looking calm. because her eyes had already noticed something. Mona Lisa's hands were shaking, not from weakness, from pressure. Derek came home that night. The whole house moved the moment his convoy entered. Doors opened quietly. Guards stood straighter. Even the lights seemed brighter. Bianca stayed in the kitchen preparing dinner. She worked fast and neatly, not to impress anyone, just to avoid giving anyone a reason to complain. Mrs. Janet leaned close to her and whispered, "The madam will taste the food first." Bianca paused. "Why?" Mrs. Janet gave her a look. "Because she must approve everything, even the air." Bianca did not answer. Dinner was served in the main dining area. Long table, polished silver, plates with gold edges. Bianca did not attend. Cooks were never seen, but she listened from behind the kitchen door. She heard Derek's calm voice. She heard Lady Beatrice's slow, cold voice. And she heard Mona Lisa's voice the least, like she was trying not to exist. Then Lady Beatrice said something that made Bianca's fingers stop moving. "Mona Lisa, you are lucky you are still here." There was a pause. Derek asked, "Mother, what is that supposed to mean?" Lady Beatrice replied sweetly, "It means I am patient." Bianca's eyes narrowed slightly. Then Mona Lisa said, very softly, "Yes, Mother." Bianca's jaw tightened. Over the next days, Bianca began to see the pattern. Lady Beatrice would enter a room, and people would step away from her like she carried fire. If a maid dropped a spoon, Lady Beatrice would look at her like she had committed a crime. If Mona Lisa spoke too confidently, Lady Beatrice would correct her in a sharp, quiet way that made the room cold. Once, Bianca saw Mona Lisa in the corridor holding a small gift bag. Mona Lisa looked happy for 1 second, like she had bought something for Derek. Then Lady Beatrice appeared at the end of the corridor like she had been waiting. "What is that?" Lady Beatrice asked. Mona Lisa held the bag tighter. "It's something for Derek." Lady Beatrice walked closer. "You do not buy gifts without telling me first." Mona Lisa blinked. "I'm his wife." Lady Beatrice cut her off. "You are his wife because I allowed it." Mona Lisa's face drained. "I'm sorry," Mona Lisa whispered. Lady Beatrice leaned in. "Say it properly." Mona Lisa swallowed. "I'm sorry, Mother." Lady Beatrice smiled with satisfaction and walked away. Mona Lisa stood still, breathing like she had been held underwater. Bianca watched from the kitchen doorway. Mrs. Janet hissed, "Bianca, don't stare. If she notices you," Bianca said quietly. "Why does everyone accept this?" Mrs. Janet's voice dropped. "Because we want to keep our jobs." Bianca's eyes did not move from Mona Lisa. "And Mona Lisa?" Mrs. Janet hesitated. "Because she wants to keep her marriage." Bianca's face hardened. "Or maybe she's being kept." Mrs. Janet grabbed Bianca's arm. "Please, don't talk like that." But Bianca did not look scared. She looked like someone counting down to something. The main incident happened on a Saturday afternoon. Derek had gone out for an important meeting. Lady Beatrice decided it was the perfect time to correct the house. She entered the sitting room, where Mona Lisa was seated quietly, reading a book that looked like it had been opened on the same page for hours. Lady Beatrice stared at her. "Stand up." Mona Lisa stood instantly. Lady Beatrice walked around her like she was inspecting a product. "Look at you," Lady Beatrice said. "You sit in my son's house like you own it." Mona Lisa's voice shook. "I'm sorry, Mother." Lady Beatrice's eyes sharpened. "Stop saying sorry like a child. You are not a child. You are a mistake I tolerate." Mona Lisa flinched as if she had been hit. The guards by the door pretended they did not hear. The maids kept their eyes down. The head housekeeper stood like a statue. And then Bianca walked in. She had been called to bring snacks, but she stopped when she heard the words. Lady Beatrice turned her head slowly. "Why are you standing there?" Bianca placed the tray on the table gently. Then she looked directly at Lady Beatrice, and in a voice that was steady and clear, she said, "Madam, you will not speak to her like that again." Mona Lisa gasped. Mrs. Janet whispered, "Jesus." Lady Beatrice's face did not change at first. Then she smiled. "A cook," she said softly. "A cook wants to teach me manners." Bianca nodded. "Yes." Lady Beatrice lifted her walking stick. "Do you know what happens to people who challenge me in my own sitting room?" Bianca answered, "I know what happens when people fear you too much." Lady Beatrice's smile fell. "What did you say?" Bianca took one step forward. And that was when Mona Lisa saw it. Bianca was holding a small black envelope. Lady Beatrice's name was written on it. Lady Beatrice's fingers tightened around the walking stick. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. Bianca did not answer. Lady Beatrice raised the stick, and Derek walked in, eyes sharp, voice low. "Mother." Lady Beatrice turned quickly, her face changing into a sweet look. "Derek, you are back early." Derek did not smile. His eyes moved from his mother to his wife's trembling hands to Bianca holding that envelope. "What is going on?" Derek asked. Bianca looked straight at him and said, "Sir, I came to cook, but I found out your mother has been using fear to bury things in this house." Lady Beatrice snapped, "Enough." Bianca lifted the envelope slightly. "This," Bianca said, "is why everybody fears her." Derek's face tightened. "What is that?" Bianca replied, slowly. "The proof." Lady Beatrice stepped forward fast, her calm mask cracking. "Give me that." And Bianca said the words that made Mona Lisa's knees almost give way. "This is why you scare everyone. Because you think nobody knows what you did." Derek's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Mother, what did you do?" Lady Beatrice's hand shook again. Then she did something nobody had ever seen her do. Her eyes filled with panic, and she lunged for the envelope, but Bianca pulled it back, and the front door behind them opened again with a loud sound. A second voice entered the sitting room, a voice that sounded like trouble. "Derek Hawthorne," the voice called. "We need to talk about your mother." Derek turned sharply. Mona Lisa turned too. Lady Beatrice froze like her body had turned to stone. And Bianca finally looked like she had been waiting for this exact moment, because standing at the doorway was a man in a dark suit, holding an official file, and the badge on his chest was clear enough for everyone to see. Law enforcement. Lady Beatrice's walking stick slipped from her hand and hit the marble floor, and the sound echoed through the mansion like a warning bell. Derek did not move. For the first time since anyone could remember, the great Hawthorne sitting room felt small. The man at the door stepped in calmly. He was not shouting. He was not rushing. His calm made everything worse. He closed the door behind him. "My name is Mr. Collins," he said. "I represent a special financial investigation unit." Lady Beatrice opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Mona Lisa's hands clutched her dress. She looked at Derek, hoping he would say something. He did not. Bianca finally spoke again. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were sharp. "Sir," she said to Derek, "this is why I came into your house." Derek turned slowly. "What do you mean?" Bianca lowered the envelope and placed it gently on the table, like it was fragile but dangerous. "I was not hired by mistake," she said, "and I did not come here only to cook." Lady Beatrice snapped out of her shock. Her voice rose, sharp and angry. "Derek, throw these people out. This woman is lying. She is a nobody." Mr. Collins looked at Lady Beatrice. "Madam, please remain calm." "I will not," Lady Beatrice shouted. "This is my son's house." Mr. Collins corrected her gently. "This is your son's house, but some of the money that built it is under investigation." The word investigation landed like a heavy stone. Derek's face hardened. "Explain, now." Mr. Collins nodded. "Years ago, funds were moved quietly from a family trust meant for charity and education projects in Lagos. The trail leads to accounts controlled by your mother." Mona Lisa gasped softly. Derek turned to Lady Beatrice. "Mother, is this true?" Lady Beatrice laughed suddenly. It sounded forced. "Empty. You believe strangers over me?" she asked. "After all I did to protect you?" Bianca stepped forward again. "You did not protect him," she said. "You protected yourself." Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed. "Shut up." Derek raised his hand. "No. Let her talk." Everyone froze. That was the first time Derek had ever stopped his mother in public. Bianca took a slow breath. "I grew up on the mainland," she began, "in a part of Lagos where people line up for water, where children leave school because their parents cannot pay fees." She looked straight at Lady Beatrice. Some of those schools were supposed to be helped by that trust. Lady Beatrice's jaw tightened. "My father worked on one of those projects," Bianca continued. "The money disappeared. The project stopped. My father lost his job. Then his health." Mona Lisa covered her mouth. Bianca's voice softened, but it carried more weight. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came for truth." Derek looked like someone had pulled the ground from under him. You planned this? Bianca nodded. I trained as a cook, because nobody looks closely at cooks. People talk freely around them. Lady Beatrice sneered. So, this was all an act. Bianca met her stare. Your cruelty made it easy. The room went quiet again. Mr. Collins opened his file. Madam Beatrice Hawthorne, we have enough evidence to request your cooperation. Lady Beatrice straightened her back. I will not go anywhere. Derek spoke quietly, but his voice shook. Mother, did you use my name? Lady Beatrice turned to him. Her voice dropped. Everything I did was for you. Derek stepped back, as if she had tried to touch him with fire. For me? He repeated. You made my wife afraid in her own home. Mona Lisa flinched when he said it out loud. Lady Beatrice looked at Mona Lisa with cold eyes. You should be grateful. I chose you. Mona Lisa surprised everyone by speaking. I have been quiet, she said softly, because I wanted peace. But peace built on fear is not peace. Lady Beatrice laughed bitterly. You think you matter now? Bianca turned to Mona Lisa. You matter. You always did. Mona Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but she stood straighter. Mr. Collins cleared his throat. Sir, he said to Derek, this matter can be handled quietly or loudly. That depends on cooperation. Derek looked around the room, the frightened staff, his shaking wife, the woman he called mother. Everyone, he said, leave the room. The guards hesitated. I said leave, Derek repeated. They obeyed. Only 5 people remained. Derek, Mona Lisa, Bianca, Lady Beatrice, and Mr. Collins. Derek turned to his mother. Tell me everything. Lady Beatrice stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled slowly. You want the truth? She asked. Fine. She sat down heavily on the sofa everyone feared. I controlled things, she said. Money, people, decisions. That is how power works in this country. Derek clenched his fists. You married a weak woman. Lady Beatrice continued. I needed to keep her small so she wouldn't interfere. Mona Lisa swallowed hard. Bianca felt her chest tighten. Lady Beatrice leaned forward. And you, she said to Bianca, you think exposing me will change Nigeria? Bianca answered calmly. It will change this house. Lady Beatrice laughed again. This house will break without me. Derek looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. No, he said. It broke because of you. Lady Beatrice's smile vanished. Mr. Collins spoke again. Madam, we need to. Lady Beatrice suddenly stood up. You think you can arrest me here? She shouted. In my son's house. She turned sharply toward Mona Lisa. And you, she said, pointing. You will regret this silence ending. Derek moved instantly, stepping between them. That is enough. Lady Beatrice froze. Derek's voice was firm now. Clear, final. You will not threaten my wife again. The room felt like it might crack. Lady Beatrice stared at her son, truly shocked for the first time. Bianca watched closely, because she knew this was not the end. This was only the moment before something bigger broke. Lady Beatrice slowly sat back down. Mr. Collins closed his file. We will return tomorrow, he said. With formal steps, he turned to leave, then paused. And Bianca, he added, thank you for your courage. After he left, silence filled the room. Derek turned to Bianca. Why stay after this? Bianca met his eyes. Because truth has consequences, and this house is not done reacting. Lady Beatrice suddenly smiled again, slow, dangerous. You think this is over? She asked quietly. You have no idea what you have started. Mona Lisa felt cold. Derek felt a knot tighten in his chest, and Bianca felt it too, because Lady Beatrice leaned back and said the words that turned the silence into fear again. If I fall, I will not fall alone. And that was the moment Bianca realized. Lady Beatrice had one last card left to play. Lady Beatrice's words stayed in the air long after she said them. If I fall, I will not fall alone. Derek felt it like a slow burn in his chest. What does that mean? He asked. Lady Beatrice did not answer. She simply stood up, adjusted her wrapper, and walked out of the sitting room with her head high, as if nothing had happened. That scared Derek more than shouting would have. That night, the Hawthorne mansion did not sleep. In the servants' quarters, whispers moved faster than light. Everyone had seen the law enforcement badge. Everyone had seen Lady Beatrice lose control, even if only for a second. Mrs. Janet sat on her bed, holding her rosary tightly. "This house has changed," she murmured. Across the corridor, Bianca sat alone on her small bed, staring at the wall. Her calm face finally cracked. She pressed her palms together. Breathing slowly, she had planned for fear, she had planned for anger, but she had not planned for Lady Beatrice's confidence. Bianca whispered to herself, "What else are you hiding?" In the master bedroom, Mona Lisa sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Derek stood by the window, looking out at the city lights of Lagos. "I should have seen it," he said quietly. "All this time." Mona Lisa's voice was soft. "You were raised to trust her." Derek turned to her. "Why didn't you tell me how bad it was?" Mona Lisa swallowed. "Because every time I tried, she reminded me that she could take everything away. My marriage, my peace, even my name in this house." Derek sat beside her slowly. "I failed you." Mona Lisa shook her head. "You're here now." There was a knock on the door. Derek stiffened. "Who is it?" "It's me," Bianca said from outside. Derek opened the door. Bianca stood there, respectfully, her hands folded. "I need to tell you something important," she said. "Something I didn't put in the envelope." Derek's eyes sharpened. "Come in." Bianca stepped inside. "She knows about me," Bianca said immediately. "More than she should." Mona Lisa frowned. "What do you mean?" Bianca hesitated for the first time. Lady Beatrice had people watching the investigation. Not directly, but through layers. She suspected someone would come. Derek stood up. "So she was ready?" "Yes," Bianca replied. And when she said she wouldn't fall alone, she wasn't talking about money. The room grew quiet. "Then what?" Derek asked. Bianca looked at Mona Lisa. She was talking about family. The next morning, Lady Beatrice woke up early. She sat in her private room, surrounded by old photo frames and heavy curtains. A room nobody entered without permission. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she had not called in years. The line rang twice. Then a man's voice answered. "Madam, I need you," Lady Beatrice said calmly. "Things have moved faster than expected." The man chuckled. "You always said this day would come." Lady Beatrice smiled faintly. "Yes, and I prepared." She ended the call and stood up, looking at her reflection. "Let them think they have won," she said to herself. "Power does not end in one house." Later that day, Derek went to his office on Victoria Island. The building was tall, glass everywhere, staff moving with purpose, but something felt wrong. As he stepped out of the elevator, his assistant rushed toward him. "Sir," she said nervously, "there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" Derek asked. "The board is asking questions," she replied. "About old trusts, and your mother's name is coming up everywhere." Derek clenched his jaw. "Who brought this up?" The assistant hesitated. "An anonymous source." Derek knew immediately. "Mother." Back at the mansion, Mona Lisa tried to move freely for the first time in years. She walked into the sitting room without fear. She sat on the sofa, everyone feared. Her heart pounded, but she stayed. Mrs. Janet watched her with wide eyes. "Madam, are you sure?" Mona Lisa nodded. "I'm sure." Bianca entered the room and smiled faintly. "You're doing well." Mona Lisa exhaled. "I feel like I'm learning how to breathe again." Bianca's smile faded slightly. "Enjoy that feeling, but be careful." Before Mona Lisa could ask why, a loud voice echoed from the hallway. "Where is my daughter-in-law?" Lady Beatrice entered the sitting room with two unfamiliar men behind her. The house froze. Mona Lisa stood slowly. "I'm here." Lady Beatrice's eyes scanned the room, then landed on Bianca. "You," she said. "Leave." Bianca did not move. Derek was not home. This time, there was no shield. Lady Beatrice stepped closer to Mona Lisa. "You think one night changes everything?" she asked quietly. "You think my son will choose you over blood?" Mona Lisa's hands trembled, but she lifted her chin. "I am his family." Lady Beatrice smiled coldly. "Not for long." One of the men behind her stepped forward and placed a document on the table. Bianca glanced at it and felt her chest tighten. It was a legal notice. Lady Beatrice spoke clearly. "I am challenging this marriage." Mona Lisa gasped. "You can't." "I can," Lady Beatrice replied. "And I will." Bianca stepped forward. This won't work. Lady Beatrice turned sharply. You are still here? Yes, Bianca said, because this is not just about money or power anymore. Lady Beatrice leaned in close. You don't understand how deep this goes. She tapped the document. By the time Derek reads this, she said, his world will shake. Mona Lisa felt dizzy. Bianca reached out and steadied her. And just then, the front door opened again. Derek walked in, his face tight, his phone still in his hand. What is going on? He demanded. Lady Beatrice turned slowly, satisfaction in her eyes. Perfect timing, she said. I was just about to remind you who truly owns your future. Derek looked at the document on the table. His eyes widened, and the color drained from his face, because written clearly at the top were the words, Paternity Disclosure Notice. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. What is this? Lady Beatrice smiled, and Bianca knew this was the card Lady Beatrice had been saving all along. Derek stared at the paper as if it might change if he blinked. What is this? He asked again, louder now. Lady Beatrice did not rush her answer. She sat down slowly, like a queen taking her throne. It is the truth, she said. The one I kept until the right moment. Mona Lisa's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Bianca stepped closer to Derek. Read it, she said quietly. Derek picked up the document with shaking hands. His eyes moved across the page. Each line felt heavier than the last. His lips parted. No, he whispered. This is not possible. Lady Beatrice crossed her legs calmly. It is very possible. And very real. The room felt smaller again. Derek looked up, his eyes burning. You are saying my father is not my father. Lady Beatrice tilted her head. I am saying the man you buried is not the man whose blood runs in your veins. Mona Lisa gasped softly and covered her mouth. Bianca felt a chill move through her spine. Derek's voice shook. Then who? Lady Beatrice's smile returned, slow and sharp. A man more powerful than you will ever be. Silence crashed down. Derek laughed suddenly, but it was empty. You're lying. This is another game. Lady Beatrice leaned forward. I do not lie about blood. She tapped the document. This notice was triggered when the investigation started. Certain protections ended. Certain names surfaced. Derek felt dizzy. You planned this? Yes, Lady Beatrice said simply. Because if I go down, the world will not look at me alone. They will look at you. Mona Lisa stepped forward. Why would you do this to your own son? Lady Beatrice turned to her, eyes cold. Because power is inherited, and secrets are currency. Bianca spoke carefully. You're trying to scare him into protecting you. Lady Beatrice laughed. I'm reminding him who he is. Derek slammed the paper on the table. I don't care who my father is. I care about what you did. Lady Beatrice's eyes narrowed. You think your empire grew clean? Derek froze. She continued. Some of your biggest deals were signed because doors opened for you. Doors opened because of me. And those doors belong to people who do not like noise. Bianca understood immediately. This was real life. Connections. Silence. Protection. Lady Beatrice was not just a woman. She was a bridge between dirty power and clean faces. Derek sank into a chair slowly. Mona Lisa knelt beside him. Look at me, she said gently. This does not change who you are. Derek swallowed hard. Everything I built. What if it's all tied to her? Bianca spoke with quiet strength. Then you decide what survives. Lady Beatrice scoffed. Ideal words, but reality is harsher. At that moment, Derek's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen. His assistant. Then another call, and another. Emails began to pour in. He answered one. Sir, the voice said nervously, your accounts are being reviewed. Some partners are stepping back. Derek closed his eyes. Lady Beatrice smiled in satisfaction. You see? The ground moves quickly. Bianca clenched her fists. You are destroying him to save yourself. Lady Beatrice shrugged. That is how families like ours survive. Mona Lisa stood up slowly, her fear turning into something else. Anger. You taught me to be silent, Mona Lisa said. But you never taught me to be heartless. Lady Beatrice laughed. Love does not protect empires. Mona Lisa looked at Derek. But it protects people. Derek stood up suddenly. No, he said. This ends today. Lady Beatrice's smile faltered slightly. I will cooperate with the investigation, Derek continued. Fully. Lady Beatrice's eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. I will, he said. Even if it costs me everything. Add. The room went still. Bianca felt a spark of hope and fear. Lady Beatrice stood slowly. You are choosing her over me, Derek answered firmly. I am choosing truth over fear. Lady Beatrice's face hardened. Then you are no son of mine, she said coldly. Derek met her gaze. Then maybe that is the first honest thing between us. Lady Beatrice turned toward the door. This house will regret this, she said quietly. She walked out, without looking back. When the door slammed, Mona Lisa's knees gave way. Bianca caught her just in time. Derek stood there, breathing hard. Bianca looked at him. She won't stop. Derek nodded slowly. Neither will I. Outside, a car engine started. And Bianca knew, Lady Beatrice was not running away. She was going to gather strength, and the next move would not be quiet at all. The sound of Lady Beatrice's car leaving the compound did not bring peace. It brought fear, the kind of fear that sits quietly and waits. That same evening, the mansion felt different, too quiet. Derek sat alone in the study, surrounded by glass walls and city lights that once made him feel untouchable. Now they felt like eyes watching him. His phone rang again. This time, it was not business. It was family, he answered. Derek, an unfamiliar male voice, said calmly. We need to meet. Derek straightened. Who is this? A short pause. The man your mother never told you about properly. Derek's heart skipped. You claim to be my father, he asked. The man laughed softly. I don't claim. I know. The line went dead. Derek stared at the phone. In another part of the house, Mona Lisa sat with Bianca in the kitchen. For the first time, the kitchen felt safer than the sitting room. I feel like my life is no longer my own, Mona Lisa said quietly. Bianca nodded. That's how control works. It convinces you that fear is normal. Mona Lisa looked at Bianca. Why are you really this strong? Bianca paused, then answered honestly. Because I watched silence destroy my family. Mona Lisa swallowed. Do you think she can still hurt us? Bianca looked toward the ceiling, as if she could see Lady Beatrice through it. Yes, she said, but not the way she used to. The next morning, Lagos woke up to whispers. Blogs began to post vague headlines. Top business family under review. Powerful matriarch faces questions. Names were not mentioned, but people knew. Derek's office was flooded with calls. Some friends checked in. Others disappeared. That was real life. Power was loyal only when it was safe. By afternoon, Lady Beatrice made her move. She arrived at the mansion unannounced, dressed simply, no guards, no drama. But she was not alone. An elderly man walked beside her, well-dressed, calm, confident. Derek felt his chest tighten when he saw him. Lady Beatrice smiled gently for the first time in years. Derek, she said, meet your father. The word hit like a slap. Mona Lisa gasped. Bianca stood frozen. The man extended his hand. My name is Charles Whitmore. Derek did not shake it. You think showing up like this fixes anything? Derek asked. Charles smiled. No. It complicates things. Lady Beatrice sat down slowly. I told you I would not fall alone. Bianca stepped forward. You're trying to confuse him. It's not for. Lady Beatrice glanced at her. No, I'm grounding him. Charles spoke calmly. Your mother protected you from a world you were not ready for. Derek laughed bitterly. By terrorizing my wife. Mona Lisa stiffened. Charles looked at her. I regret that. Mona Lisa met his eyes. Regret does not erase damage. The room went quiet again. Lady Beatrice's voice sharpened. We are wasting time. The investigation is closing in. We need unity. Derek's eyes burned. You want me to lie for you? Lady Beatrice shook her head. I want you to survive. Bianca spoke softly but firmly. Survival without truth is just another prison. Lady Beatrice snapped. Enough. She stood up and faced Bianca directly. You think you broke my power by exposing money? She asked. Money is replaceable. Then she turned to Derek. But reputation, she said, is not. She pulled out her phone and pressed play. A voice filled the room. Derek's voice. Old. Recorded. Discussing deals. Sensitive deals. Mona Lisa's heart dropped. Bianca's breath caught. Lady Beatrice smiled. One call, Lady Beatrice said. And this goes public. Derek stared at her. You recorded me. I raised you, she replied. Of course I did. Silence exploded. Bianca finally understood. This woman did not just rule with fear. She collected weapons. Lady Beatrice leaned closer to Derek. You stand with me, she said softly. Or you lose everything. Derek's hands shook. Mona Lisa reached for him. Look at me. He did. Her eyes were steady. Whatever you lose, she said. We face it together. Bianca felt tears burn behind her eyes. Derek took a deep breath. Then he did something nobody expected. He turned to Bianca. Call Mr. Collins, he said. Lady Beatrice froze. Derek, she warned. Derek looked at his mother with calm finality. I will not be owned anymore. Lady Beatrice's face twisted. You will regret this, she hissed. Bianca dialed the number with shaking fingers. Lady Beatrice laughed sharply. You think this ends with law enforcement? Derek answered quietly. No. It ends with choice. Sirens could be heard faintly in the distance. Not close, but coming. Lady Beatrice stepped back slowly. Eyes darting, calculating. Charles Whitmore sighed. You've chosen a hard path. Derek nodded. But it's mine. Lady Beatrice stared at her son. For the first time, fear crossed her face, because the house she ruled with terror was no longer afraid, and the game she controlled had just slipped out of her hands, but not without one final move still waiting in the dark. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Do well to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed. Your loved bestie.